Hello, PowerHouse SMART friends and colleagues. Here we are, another great opportunity for a cool collabs episode with a brand new, actually I'm a raving fan of Mark Ostrom, and we're going to learn all about his incredible story and what he's doing to give back to humanity. And it's going to inspire all of you, which is perfect because we're right here around the new year and the holidays. So without further ado, Mark Ostrom, please introduce yourself, share with our audience.
Hey, Wendy, good to see you again. Thanks for this time, and hello to all your listeners.
Yeah, this is great. So the PowerHouse Cool Collabs is all about finding leaders in our industry. And our industry is really a niche industry. It's luxury design, build, and real estate development. And you fit into all of those beautiful categories, but you actually have a huge story to tell, not only from your history, but what you're doing currently. And we at Powerhouse Companies are so thrilled to be able to work with you and partner with you in 2025. And I just think it's the beginning of a very long relationship. So share with us, like, how did you get into this industry? And I want to hear the history, and then I'll ask a couple questions about what else is happening new. Okay.
Well, we could be here all day, but I know we got to keep it short, Wendy. So, for everybody who doesn't know us, please check out our website at joycollaborative.org. We are a nonprofit based in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Our mission is to create empowering spaces for youth with life-limiting conditions. So, under the context of luxury, this isn't necessarily about luxury furnishings. It's more about abundance. And that's my definition of luxury in this context is how can we bring the abundance and creative community together to help families and individuals who might not necessarily have the resources to make powerful change or significant change in their physical space. So Joy Collaborative, we have a board of about 10 people here. They are actually spread across the country. And they are the fuel in our tanks. They are the people who keep us on track and keep the mission going ahead. As a creative person, there's probably other people in your room who have more of the monkey brain with, a million ideas a day, but we can't do a million ideas a day. We can only do a couple of really strong ones. So the notion of Joy Collaborative and the collaborative nature of that is to bring together the architects, interior designers, the product manufacturers, all the tradespeople to help those who don't have resources to help themselves. The genesis of Joy Collaborative I had basically when I was in college, and for those of you who can see me can tell that probably wasn't yesterday, but it was a number of years ago, and I kept dusting it off and putting it back on the shelf and dusting it off. So if we want to go on the way back time machine, Wendy, I was a really creative kid, and I just loved doing anything that was creative, whether that was hands-on stuff or it ended up doing, I ended up making some films and things like that, and just really wanted to take that in and share that with kids. So my original degree was with education. Childhood education was my first degree, but when I got out of college, there really weren't any jobs near me, and so I took a break. Worked at Dayton Hudson Marshall Field's company for a number of years, but went back to school for architecture and interiors, and that's where I really knew I found my home. Because
Wow.
I was really interested in not necessarily the exterior of the building, but the interior where the experiences happened. So my years at the university, I actually worked when I was going to school. I worked for the cleft palate clinic there. And if you know what cleft palate is, it's when your upper lip doesn't fuse. And our clinic was super innovative. It was also very expensive, and people spent a long time, years, getting rehab services and surgeries and whatnot in our clinic. So I got to know these families really well and really got to understand what they didn't have. And what they didn't have was a lot of time. They didn't have necessarily a lot of hope. They didn't have a lot of things that a normal family might have because you're caring for somebody with a disability. And that was a really profound experience for me.
Mhm.
One of the other legs of the stool is one of my first built projects was I was lucky enough to be on the design team for the Rainforest Cafe here at the Mall of America when that opened. And for those of you who maybe don't realize, when that space opened, the lines were 3 hours long and people were waiting forever to get in there. It was quite the destination. And as proud I think as the design team was of the success of the project, for me it was about watching body language And it was about watching interpersonal connections change from, waiting in a mall corridor for hours to walking across a threshold into a space that completely transformed the dynamics of let's just say it was a family. And it hit me, it was so clear. You mentioned epiphany. It was very clear that we needed to bring that energy to those families that I had been working with disability. And I cannot say how much louder and clearer that was. I'm a big fan of affirmations and manifesting, and I got that message. It took me a while to actually, formulate Joy Collaborative as a company. I wasn't quite ready to leave my full-time job. I was lucky enough to be working and designing for a Fortune 10 company here in the Twin Cities. It was a dream job anybody else would have, and I wasn't happy. And I wasn't happy because I wasn't aligned. And so in 2019, I quit my full-time job, free floated for a year without a salary, which gave me time to really formulate Joy Collaborative and start a couple projects on my own. So the response from that, whether it was Make-A-Wish or other organizations, was so strong that there was no denying that this needed to happen. So in June of 2020, yes, height of COVID, we got our nonprofit status, but we just kept blowing forward. Contractors were moving, designers were doing projects, and we just kept going. And now we're in year 4.5. We've got over 7,000 people accessing our rooms in the Twin Cities. We have launched the Joy Mobile at the Minnesota State Fair, the second largest fair in the country, that is a mobile sensory unit that will be able to go out beyond the Twin Cities and help people with a very pervasive problem when it comes to sensory issues in spaces where people may not have real estate or the funds to be able to create magical spaces like this.
Wow.
So we could talk here all day, Wendy. You know that. I'm super passionate around what I do, but it's really focused on individuals. We do work in individual family homes, and we also do work in program spaces like Ronald McDonald House or other larger organizations. The ones for single family, if they are under the federal income guidelines, we do that work at no cost to them.
Wow.
Those projects, as you can imagine, I think our least expensive project, in-kind goods and services, was over $35,000. But now we are starting to do our own income revenue generating projects, which is super exciting. And clients are coming to us and they're finding us for our point of view when it comes to pediatrics and space. And I couldn't be more excited.
And so, first of all, I have so many questions, but I wanted you to finish because it was such a great introduction. So thank you so much. So you said back in college, did the actual idea blossom when you were that young, and you had that kind of thought that there might be something in this world here?
Yeah, it did. It was very distinct to me. I think I was a senior in college, and I was like, I don't even remember what project we were working on. It had nothing to do with kids, but I was like, wait a minute, like there's so many like projects that are designed for children that looks like they were designed by a 45-year-old imagining what a kid wants. I'm like, nobody asked a kid what they wanted here. I can tell you in this project, they were just goofy and kind of circusy. And I'm like, why isn't there a focus, just a firm focused on pediatrics and design? And I could find one person abroad. And so I thought, well, I'm nuts. There's people more mature than I, further along their paths than I. So I must be nuts. And so that was the reason to kind of like shelve it, bring it back, shelve it. I mean, it was nagging at me for years. And then there was a point where there was no return.
Yep. Almost like, came right down into your consciousness, right? Something was there. So then fast forward a little bit after that, then you started working in, design and architecture, and
Yep.
you were assigned, one of your projects was the Rainforest Cafe. Did you tell them that you had this epiphany of this other idea of Joy Collaborative, or was that just a coincidence?
It was a coincidence. I was lucky enough. The visionary Steve, who developed that project, I actually saw him probably a couple of years ago. We briefly saw each other, but then I saw him again this summer at an event that we both happened to be at. And I told him, and he just looked at me. He's just jaw dropped. He's like, "What?" And then I directed him to our website, and he was just like, "Wow, this is just fantastic." And he was such a visionary. He was hard to work with because he did have a million ideas going at the same time.
Right.
But if you, stayed the course, in the end, it was, there's magic there.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And just the name, I mean, brilliant. As soon as I heard the name from one of your board members, John Creamer, and that's how I got to meet you, which I'm so grateful. And of course, then immediately we had to connect, and now we have all kinds of things that we're working on with John and you and I and other people in our community. But the name is it just pulls everything together. So now I want to ask a couple questions because I know you're doing projects both residentially and also more impactful projects that are, like you said, at the Minnesota State Fair
Yep.
and Make-A-Wish and hospitals. And oh my God, the impact can be huge.
Mhm.
But let's start with just the residential because I know that there's an interior designer, Lucy Penfold, who's going to be speaking at an event you and I are going to do together to
Yes.
raise awareness for Joy Collaborative among PowerHouse SMART. That's our education community of luxury industry professionals. But beyond that, our community as a whole, and then beyond that, the public as a whole. So tell me, Lucy did a couple residential projects for you. Was it her coming to you, you going to her? How did that transpire? And tell me about that.
I went to an ASID holiday party
Okay.
and met their community outreach person, Tim Munkern, who you may or may not know, but Tim's fantastic. He works in sales and flooring, and he and Lucy are good friends. And so we got together, and it was kind of instant karma. I don't know what the term is, but Lucy is just a sparkling personality, and just we really connected around a upcoming project. And so she and her team just dove in. We ended up doing this outdoor treehouse project in partnership with Gardner Builders, who's done multiple projects for us, and MSR Design. They've also done a couple projects for us. And so Lucy was in charge of kind of bringing some life to the exterior shell, and the interior was left raw, very much on purpose. And just brought some really fantastic elements in that no one had really thought of, but really benefited Isaac, who was our core of our project. And in the end, I mean, it was a wonderful project. We got published a couple places, but Lucy, I did not know, ended up submitting it, and last summer won a national ASAD award for a community project.
Wow. Fabulous. That's great. And that great is great exposure for what Joy Collaborative offers. And that's more on the residential. And then did she do an interior project as well?
No, the second project she did for us was it was called Imagine Theater. It was for a girl with she was the youngest recipient of a heart transplant at the University of Minnesota at age of 1. She also had part of a lung removed during COVID, so this kid's lived through a lot. And her dream was to have a space where she could bring friends together and get creative. So Lucy and her team again dove in along with Tim and did an amazing project there as well. And that's a freestanding outdoor building.
Wow. And is that a private or is that public?
That's a private project.
Okay, wow. So now, one of the things I asked you when you and I first got a chance to meet each other before today, I said, well, what can we do to help you? And what is it that this audience who, again, we're B2B, but I hope this gets out to everyone because we really need to spread the word. What can we do to help you? And I know you said your website's there, and I know people are going to meet you at our event on April 17th at the
Mhm.
Interiors. But today, let's not wait until April. What can we do to help you?
So I always put those asks in a like a low, medium, and high level of effort. So the lowest effort is like, take a look at our website. If there's something there that's really intriguing to you, share it out, tag us on Instagram, follow along with us, comment on our stories. Like people do not realize the power of just those little things and how that can spread your audience. So the first one is like, don't spend a dime and just find us online. The second one would be, kind of a medium lift. And that would involve, if there are vendors in your network that you think would be a great connection for us, if there are people in like corporate philanthropy or people who run a family foundation, just let's have a conversation around, is this something that you think is important? Is this something, this ability to shift a trajectory of youth through design? If that's something that really resonates with you, like let's have a conversation around that. Again, just sharing it out, learning more about it, having an employee engagement experience with us is super fun. And the highest level that I would say is, and we can talk about it if we have time, is our Joy Mobile at the Minnesota State Fair, and Joy Collaborative as a mission in general. You're talking to the only full-time employee of Joy Collaborative. Everything you see on our website was orchestrated by one person. Well, we cannot possibly grow. We cannot possibly address the pipeline of projects, and the pipeline's never going to dry up. So
Agreed.
there are kids in need everywhere, and we've got 20 different organizations and families waiting for us to work on their next project. So we need help. We need to grow. We need people who believe in us, who want to support us, and make sure that we have the right tools and the right resources in order to make that happen. So if somebody's excited, for example, about the Joy Mobile, and you want to be that brand sponsor, and you want to get in front of 2 million guests in Minnesota alone, and then get that thing out into the community, there is nothing better than visiting with one of our kids or adults who visit the Joy Mobile, and in 5 or 10 minutes come out completely centered.
Yes,
It
yes,
is profound to be able to meet somebody eye to eye and see them in a public space where they are overwhelmed, they are surprised, they are not comfortable, they may be having a meltdown, but we can help them through our mobile space. And that problem is expansive. That problem is everywhere.
yeah.
And we're just at the tip of being able to launch this as a fleet. So if somebody's interested in that, that's a high lift, and we are ready to turn that into a fleet, believe me.
Right. And anybody who is not in the design build industry or real
Mhm.
estate industry, you're always looking for supporters, fundraising and friend raising, I call it, because
Absolutely.
somebody who's going to donate to you is going to continue to donate. They're going to become a part of the family. So I think that's awesome. And all of that will be in the links below. But you mentioned the Joy Mobile and you gave us more of an insight. So we're hoping that you're going to be able to bring the Joy Mobile to the IMS in Minneapolis, hopefully inside.
We'll
So
figure it
that
out.
yeah, so I'm thrilled about that. And so is your intent, like your goal, to have Joy Mobiles in as many locations across the United States and globally in the long term? Is that really your thought, or tell me how that looks?
Well, like I said, so we back up, and what's the genesis of that project? So the genesis of that project is twofold. One, a friend of mine, Tony, has a 19-year-old nonverbal autistic son who he would find hanging out in his van.
Mm.
Tony's a real estate agent and used his van for staging materials. So he would just, run them all over, stage the house, bring it back home. And when the van was empty, his son would just hang out there. And he was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? My kid really likes hanging out in this space. And so he has me talk to him, and I'm like, well, Tony, this isn't a design experience. This is just kind of random luck on your part. So let's figure this out. And at the same time, we had been working with Prairie Care, who's the largest provider of mental health services in the state of Minnesota, trying to help other organizations who did not have real estate to figure out a way to bring a sensory space to them. So it just clicked. It was so clear.
Yeah.
So we tricked out basically his cargo van with a lot of acoustic material. We figured out, what are the senses that we can affect? What are meaningful experiences that people can have? And we launched it, a year and a half ago. So within a year, we're invited to the Minnesota State Fair,
Wow. Amazing.
which
Okay.
is people wait for years to be on that campus, and here we are serving, thousands of people through the course of a week and a half.
Wow.
And we had requests from, I think we had 8 different states. People said, can you bring this to San Diego? Can you bring this to Atlanta? Well, with one, not the easiest thing to do. But if we can have a distributed system, then it's a lot easier. So that's the long-term view.
Yeah, and I can just think of my wheels are turning, all the brands that might want to be that Joy
Hmm.
Mobile in their city.
Hmm.
So,
Yep.
wow, there's so many opportunities. I'm really, really excited, and this is just the beginning of us working together. And there's so much more to learn, and we're going to have to probably do another podcast as we continue to grow this along, and when we get different projects to talk about. So that
Sure.
is fantastic. So before we leave, and again, the 3 pillars that I look for in this podcast, and really it's about giving back
Yeah.
anyway, is just finding the people that are doing really cool things like you and all of the board members that you have, and then all of your volunteers and constituents and sponsors. And then also, talking about living with an attitude of gratitude, and
Hmm.
that, I believe we're all souls here having a human experience.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
brother. And then the last, of course, is helping humanity. And it's so clear to me that you're all three of them. So I'll just ask one last question so that we
Mhm.
can keep us at our commutable time frame of just under 20, 25 minutes. Mark, what is your definition of living with an attitude of gratitude?
I'm a big fan of affirmations, so you're hitting on a theme that's near and dear to my heart. We would not be in the place we are without them. I am absolutely convinced of that. So, when my gratefulness appears, it's for our supporters. We wouldn't be here without people who are believers in what we're doing. Even the doubters and even that criticism helped build what we've got today. Whether they were seen or unseen people, whether they were parents we were working with or nonprofit executive directors working with a mission and working with spaces that really worked against them. My spouse being there to, carry me through times being unemployed and health insurance. And man, that's just a really rough year.
Right.
But we've had hundreds of friends and colleagues help us with networking to bring people to us. Again, this is the Joy Collaborative. That's how we get things done. We collaborate to bring the joy. And again, without our amazing recipients, we actually refer to them as our clients, but without our recipients, and being transparent and open to allow us to help them, we have really difficult conversations with some of our recipients. These are experiences because we're learning from and designing for people with life-limiting conditions. I can't possibly have experienced all the disability that there is in the world, but we have to lean into that in order to get the best possible solution.
Yep, absolutely. I feel like being with you is like a big hug around every soul, every human being, and we're together. We're doing this together. We're living together. We're making
Yeah,
an impact on the world.
yeah.
One joy project, one joy collaborative project together. Every step of the way. Oh my God, I'm just so blessed to be here with you, and thank you
Thank you,
so much
Wendy.
for sharing your
Well,
time with me.
my good friend who I worked on the Rainforest Project with, and that was a long time ago. We get together often, and he's like, "I don't know how you do what you do. I couldn't do it." And I'm
That's
like, "Dude, we need to lean in.
that's right.
All you need to do is meet one of these people and have a 5-minute conversation. That's all you need to hear."
That's right.
So, you
Impact.
know, as much as we, might in the design world might like to do our fancy things and have all the wonderful things attached to our project, what we can do and the outlooks that we can change through our work is beyond measure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Talk about enlightenment. It's right
Mm.
there in front of us. Well, Mark, I wish you the most wonderful holidays, Happy New
You
Year, and
too.
thank you again for your time. And I look forward to giving you a big hug when I see you in person.
I'm looking forward to it. It'll be nice and warm by the time you get here.
Okay, well, I hope so. Namaste. My love to your
Yes.
family. Thank you again.
Thanks to all your listeners. Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks.
Yep. Bye bye.